Hi, it's Craig from Edible Leeds and 4 Wild Seasons, coming to you from front room. So this is just the third video in a sequence of 3 videos on acorns and processing acorns. And my previous 2 videos, which you can go and check up on, kind of go through the processing of acorns to get to this stage. There'll be a grand revealing very shortly. So in those videos, I just discussed how I'd been picking acorns in November and December that were sprouting. I've never picked sprouting acorns before, and I've never processed fresh sprouting acorns before. Part of the reason behind processing those acorns was they were very wet, and what I was worried about was when I brought the sprouting acorns into a warmer environment, obviously they're not in their natural environment, which is in the soil, and those shoots have the potential to dry up, break down, and potentially allow bacteria to get into the acorns because the shells are compromised by the sprouts popping out of the shells. So I decided to process them to prevent any spoilage of acorns. This is just a lot of dried acorns, but these were fresh, green, plump, sprouting acorns, which means that they're higher in nutritional values. I don't quite know how that transfers into a finished product. I'd have to do some scientific tests, I would imagine, to gauge and get the scope on that one. But yeah, so I'm going to move these dried acorns because I didn't use dried acorns. I just put wet sprouting acorns straight away into my fermentation or brew bucket. And then what I've allowed to happen was every 24 hours to 72 hours, because I was a little bit naughty sometimes, just forgetting things. I was doing daily water changes, or 3 daily water changes, every 3 days. And on the 3rd day, what I noticed was that fermentation was taking place through the sugars that were naturally in the acorns, and obviously within the water. So I ended up with fermenting. So this has obviously changed the taste and the aroma of the acorns. So I find it quite exciting, really. Again, just like accidental processes or accidental delays in processes, then kind of help you stumble upon these kind of like new discoveries, really. So basically what I have under here is got the starch. So in the other 2 videos I'd shown the whole processing stage to get the acorns into a fine meal like this, which has been dehydrated. And then once it was dehydrated, apart from that little batch, I popped it into my NutriBullet, and I've got this lovely acorn flour in here. Prior to that having acorn flour in, what it had was the leach water that I'd squeezed out from the muslin cloth from the blending of the acorns, which was clayey, sandy, beige looking liquid, tasty as well. And literally I then put this kiln jar and left it on the kitchen worktop. Now that has been, how can I put it? It's had access to warmer temperatures or fluctuations in temperatures. And I left it on the worktop for about 5 to 6 days, I think 6 days in total. And I noticed again that it started to ferment with the natural sugars that are in the acorns. So again, there's this fermentation process going on. And then after 6 days, what I then did was, after the starches had settled and had some excess water on the top, I poured off that excess water, and then I scraped all the starch out, put it into a container. I froze that container, and then 24 hours later, I took the container out of the freezer and I put it into a piece of muslin cloth. It was rectangular at the time. I then tried to hang this, but it was just people coming in and out of the kitchen. We need to get into the cupboard to get the bowls and the plates out and the cups and things. So I decided to get my lasagna dish, a cake cooling rack, and literally just put a piece of muslin cloth on the top. So I did have this propped up with another item to allow water to drip out of it. So basically 24, 36 hours later, what I have is the starch is completely defrosted. Any excess liquid has dropped into the lasagna dish. Wow. I don't have to explain it. It's so tasty. It's really sweet, but it's really intense with that really beautiful nutty, earthy loveliness of acorns. And there's that green element. I mentioned bean sprouts in my last video, and there's an element of bean sprouts or greenness. Just there's a real fresh vibrancy to it. It's absolutely delicious. So I'm gonna filter this off, try and take out any little bits of residual starch, and use this in some sort of cooking somewhere. Maybe I can make a broth or something. Like, got some smoked kelp. Maybe I'll make like a dashy broth or something like that. It'd be quite interesting. So yeah, yet to play with that. I'll just move that over there. What I am excited to show you all, I love this. I really, really love this. So funny, last night I went to a clay class. I'm needing things to do with my mind, to focus myself and just focus my hands, although I don't really cigarettes and joints all the time. So I went out and went to a clay class, and I'm making some bowls, which more about those later. So this is now defrosted fully. And what I have is this really beautiful, I don't want to get it all over my hands, but I've got this really beautiful, malleable, sticky-ish lump of acorn starch. It's really malleable. It's lovely. Honestly, it's so lovely. It's great. It really is. It is like working with clay, very, very wet clay. You can see it's just sticking to me all over the place. I need to be careful because I don't want to lose too much of it. I want to scrape it off my fingers. And what I'm really, really excited about is the quantity. I've got a really good quantity of starch here, but also it's a flavour. There's a slight sort of fermented fizz initially on the tongue, giving way to sweetness and that greenness of freshly sprouted seeds and sprouts, not as in cabbage sprouts. And it's sweet and it's nutty and it's earthy. It's delicious. It's a shame there's not like a scratch and sniff or a pass me a piece portal in the mobile phone, but we know with the technology, are we? Maybe Elon Musk will bring something like that. Who knows? So basically what I am going to do with this is I'm going to take it away soon. I'm just going to roll it out, and then I'm going to slice it. I'm going to put it onto a dehydrator rack with greaseproof paper, and I'm just going to dry it, and then I'm going to blitz it into a powder, and I'm going to add it back to this acorn flour. And then I'm hoping that through that process, that will open up the window for more sort of bready applications, because acorn flour without any starch is very, very difficult to work into breads, and it's really difficult to work into pastas as well, and even noodles to an extent. It's a very different, how can you put it, entity, medium to play with than standard wheat flours. But I think that's part of the excitement. But I've also, just something that sprung to mind a wee while back, is I've got myself into a new rabbit hole of experimentation, exploration, and that's using koji, Aspergillus oryzae. So I have a pure acorn miso and tamari on the go. It's going to be about 3 months to 6 months before that's actually ready, but I'm quite excited at the potentials of that. Now, on reading through books and chatting with people, mainly through reading through books, when you're trying to grow koji spores, it all depends on their substrate that you're growing them on. So you'll see that a lot of people grow it on rice initially, and the reason for that is that rice contains a lot of starch, and Aspergillus oryzae loves starch. It needs starch to get its teeth into and then proliferate and create a large community. Hence when you then get the koji rice, which you would then mix in with, whether that's beans, soybeans, but I don't want to go down the soybean route. So I'm into more like wild nuts, but also like, locally produced pulses like black carlin beans or black badger beans that are grown by holiday dogs in the UK organically and regeneratively. And I'm going to use those instead of soybeans. But I reckon there's scope and potential for growing Aspergillus oryzae on acorn starch because of the starches that are in it. It's a heck of a lot of starch to be experimenting with, and I'm new to koji, so I'm a little, not nervous, just have that, I think that early steps kind of like wondering in your mind, like, oh, is this going to work? So I need to do a small experiment before I delve into doing a large batch of acorn starch koji, basically. But I think there is the potential there for it, so I'll make a video at some point in time in the future if I venture down that route. But I've had people asking me questions such as, is it easy to process acorns? And yeah, it's really easy. It's as easy as most of the other things that you do on a daily basis, like making a cup of coffee. It's just that the process is a little bit longer, but you're not having to focus all your time and attention constantly. Yeah, you set certain processes in place, and then you just have to revisit for 5 or 10 minutes, changing your water, putting the water back in, leaving it for 24 or 72 hours. And then once your leaching's done, just yeah, going through the processes that I've shown you in the other videos, there's not a huge amount of hours involved really. The biggest bulk of hours is gathering the acorns, and then cracking them out of their shells really. But if you do that as a little community of people with like some friends and family, you have a really nice time. Yeah, I'm going to leave it on that. I'm going to try and clean this starch off though. I think I might eat it all. Honestly, it's so lovely, so beautiful. Yeah, I'm looking forward to later this year attending festivals and doing some workshops and demonstrations specifically on acorns. I've got kind of a love for acorns, and I see acorns when they're in good massed years have been a pivotal and intrinsic alternative in, not even an alternative, but actually becoming mainstream, to be honest with you. Why acorns and the processing of acorns isn't a mainstream food commerce activity, I do know why, but I'd like to change that. And there's a lot of other people in the UK as well that would like to change that as well. They are a sustainable, abundant, versatile, viable local economy, increasing and building food resource really. So I think there's a lot more potential and scope with acorns than what we're kind of like tapping into at the moment, but more of that in due course. On that note, I'm going to stop that video. I'm going to say bye. Thanks for watching all the videos, and yeah, I'll catch you all again at some point of time soon. Okay, take care. Bye bye.